Hi, I'm Brian Hansel. I'm an outdoor photographer and an outdoor photography educator. I spend a lot of time in the woods. I spend about 100 days of the year visiting our national parks all over the country to photograph them. And when I'm home in Cook County, Minnesota, I spend many of the mornings on Lake Superior in the woods photographing sunrise and sunset and the different waterfalls and the beautiful lakes that we have up in northern Minnesota. So when I'm out in the woods, I'm always prepared for something to go wrong. They tell you that you need to prepare to have shelter and water. Though if you have those two things, you can survive for a long time. But there's 10 other essentials that I carry in my backpack. So what are the 10 essentials? Find out after the break. All right, so let's peer into my pack and see what I brought for 10 essentials. So these 10 essentials are what I typically carry with me, and I'll show you a couple different varieties of what you might want to bring. So just pull it out here on the ground. So one thing that I do like to do is compartmentalize my different 10 essentials. So I have these little envelopes that are zippered to keep everything in. And you'll notice here that I do have two different first aid kits. So this is for a big group. This is when I'm out by myself. So one of the first things that you're going to want to consider bringing for 10 essentials is extra clothing. So you might have noticed from the beginning of the video to this one, I'm in a blue warmer coat, and my vest that I hike around in is right here. So the blue would be extra, and the hat is an extra piece of gear that I brought in case I stopped and things were getting cold. I have quite a bit of stuff right in here. So extra food, so if I'm just out on a day hike, I'm only going to bring like a couple granola bars. I may or may not use them. Some extra water, something to drink. So in winter, we're going to have an insulated cup. And then extra clothing. So those are like what I consider the three extras. So here's some of the most important stuff right here is the navigation equipment. So compass and maps. And you could pick a couple different compasses if you wanted. So something fancier like this allows you to set the declination and does a lot better at sighting than just a simple compass. I find that I live in very dense woods, so I like the simple compass, and there's very little declination around here. So I don't really need much. But the simple compass allows me to navigate just by quickly looking down. I don't have to open the top of the other compass. But if I were going to go somewhere more complicated with more open area, I would bring this one because it just sights a little bit better. Then the next thing that you're going to want to bring is sun protection, so some sunscreen, and then you'll notice that I'm wearing sunglasses, a headlamp, and extra batteries. So I got fresh batteries in this headlamp, and I have extra batteries stashed away in my backpack so that if I need them, I can grab them out. And then a medical kit. So within my first aid kit, I also have a way to start a fire. So I just have a small Bic lighter in there. So that's another essential is the fire starting ability. So I have that actually spread out through two pieces of gear. So a lighter just in my first aid kit. And then in my other kit, which is a repair kit, I have some tinder and some matches, so some waterproof matches that are inside of a bag, which brings us to the next one of the 10 essentials, which is a knife and a repair kit. I'll get to the knife in a second, but within the repair kits, I have some threads and needles, some duct tape, other items that I might need depending on where I'm out. If I'm not going out in a long distance trip, I don't need to bring a lot, but I also have a signaling mirror in here, fabric repair tape in case I would rip a coat, then I could quickly throw this stuff on there. And like I said, matches and tinder and different stuff like that. Then for knives, you have an option here. So typically in my light first aid kit, I do have a very small Swiss Army knife that just has like a scissors, a small knife, a file, just a few toothpick and a tweezers in it. So if I'm not going to bring another knife, I have one in my first aid kit if I'm going out solo. Then if you're really into the kind of the bush crafting survival stuff, this would be more of a recommended type of knife because you could split wood with it. You do a lot more stuff. So there's the blade runs the full length of the entire knife so that you can hammer down on it. And the steel is very sharp and holds its edge well. So, but those are heavy, and I would very, very seldom bring something out into the woods like this. Just not into that. I find it a lot easier to find small dead twigs and break them to start a fire than trying to use a knife to chop wood. But if you're into that kind of thing, it's fun. What I bring most of the time is this small little knife here. So it's compact. It weighs just a little under 2 ounces. I have a bright orange string attached to it so I can see it very easily. And it's an easy one to maintain and keep clean. It does pretty much everything that I need it to do, which is essentially spreading peanut butter and cutting cheese. I haven't really found much of a need for it on my adventures other than those two uses. Or what I do want to say to avoid, and I know that these are popular now, are these wooded handled knives. They're very inexpensive, under 10 bucks. And they have a decent blade to them, nice and sharp out of the box and easy to maintain. The problem is when you're using these for a long period of time, this wood, as it gets wet when you're cleaning it, tends to swell, and when it swells, it makes it very, very difficult to open and close this. The last time I used this on a trip was a week-long trip into the Boundary Waters in a canoe trip, and by day 3 it had swollen so much that it was extremely difficult and dangerous to get the blade open. So I actually had to figure out how to expand the pivot point so that it would open, otherwise we wouldn't have had a knife. So I would avoid those unless you're just using them for, you know, a day at a time, and you can allow it to dry out if it gets wet before your next use. It's just better getting something with a synthetic handle that you're not going to have any swelling issues on. The next thing that you're going to want to consider is some sort of shelter. So this is just a small tarp. So it's long enough to stretch between 2 trees so that you could lay underneath it and put a fire in front of it if you have to. It's waterproof and it's relatively lightweight. So if I'm going to go out by myself deeper into the woods, this is something I'm going to pack. So those are the 10 essentials. So we'll go through them one last time here, just so you can see what they are, one right after another. First of all, a compass of some variety. Like I said, if I'm in the North Woods, I just like something very simple. If I'm out where I'm going to have better views or more complicated navigation, then I'm going to bring a compass with a better sight on it. A headlamp of some variety and extra batteries, flashlight. I like headlamps, so that's what I recommend. Sun protection, sunglasses. A first aid kit based on the size of your group. So solo can be smaller if you want, and if you have a group you want to be bigger. Some type of fire starter, so lighter, some tinder, some emergency matches. So I'd always bring like 2 ways to start a fire. Then a repair kit and a knife of some variety. A shelter, and this is just a tarp. This is a very lightweight and versatile piece of equipment. Extra food based on how long you're going to be out. Extra water based on how long you're going to be out. And then some extra clothing, which of course I'm wearing right now instead of... All right, those are the 10 essentials that I carry with me when I'm out in the woods. One thing to remember, that the 10 essentials are pretty worthless if you don't know how to use them. If you've never used a compass, go take a navigation course. If you've never done any first aid, take a wilderness first aid course. If you've never set up a tarp before, throwing it in your pack and not knowing how to use it during an emergency is a recipe for disaster. So go practice in your backyard, figure out how to set up that tent, take those courses. In the case of survival in the woods and the 10 essentials, knowing how to use them is just as important as having them. So thanks for shooting with me today, and we'll see you later.